My name is Margaret Whitmore, and I've spent most of my life working long hours as a school librarian in a small Vermont town. Retirement came quietly, not with cruises or luxury, but with a modest pension and a humble little apartment filled with secondhand furniture and memories. I never had much, but what I did have, I gave freely to the one person who meant everything to me, my daughter Emily. When Emily married Caleb, I was overjoyed. A new chapter, a fresh beginning. But Boston was expensive, and their bills kept growing, so I stepped in, without being asked. Month after month, I sent $5,000 to help them breathe a little easier. Formula, daycare, rent. I covered what they couldn't. Not because I had to, but because that's what mothers do, right? When baby Noah came along, my heart swelled. I knitted blankets, shipped cookies, and made plans to be there every Christmas. I wasn't just helping, I was a part of their life. Or so I believed. I didn't need thank you notes. Their smiles were enough. Their happiness, my reward. Looking back now, I wonder, was I giving out of love or clinging to a place in their hearts I never truly had? 3 days before Christmas, I was standing in front of my bedroom mirror, smoothing down a new sweater I'd bought just for the trip. I had 2 large suitcases packed, one filled with gifts, the other with my hopes. The house smelled faintly of bourbon cookies, and on the kitchen table sat a tin I'd baked just for Caleb, along with a carefully wrapped cashmere scarf for Emily and a dinosaur pajama set for little Noah. Then the phone rang. "Hi, Mom." Emily's voice came through, thinner than usual, forced. My stomach dropped. "Emily, is something wrong?" She hesitated, then said softly, "Can I put Caleb on the phone for a minute?" Before I could respond, the line shifted, and Caleb's voice filled the silence. Calm, polite, too polite. "Hey, Margaret, look, we've been thinking, this Christmas might not be the best time for you to visit." The words crashed into me like a wave of icy water. My hand trembled. I clutched the phone tighter. "Did, something happen?" He chuckled lightly, like he was brushing off a misunderstanding. "No, nothing serious. It's just that my parents are coming to stay. They're older now, need their own rooms, and with only 3 bedrooms. Well, you know." I didn't know. I didn't understand at all. "You mean there's no space for me?" I could barely get the words out. "There's the couch," I added quickly. "I can sleep there. I don't need much. I just want to be with you all." There was a pause, one that told me everything. "Margaret, we just want a peaceful holiday this year. The house will be crowded. We're both exhausted. Emily's been working overtime. I've been stressed. We were hoping for some private time. Just us." Private time. The woman who had wired $5,000 a month for nearly a decade. The one who emptied her savings to help them buy that house. The one who helped raise their son, soothe fevers, clean bottles, and sang lullabies while they slept. Now I was too much? I asked to speak to Emily again. Her voice was barely more than a whisper. "Mom, please don't be upset. Caleb didn't mean anything by it. It's just, his parents are light sleepers, and they really need their space." She trailed off, and in the silence I heard Caleb clear his throat in the background. A subtle sound, but it was enough. A warning. She'd made her choice. Not once did she say, "You can still come." Not once did she offer the couch, or even a blanket on the floor. Just excuses wrapped in guilt. I swallowed hard, heart aching in a way I hadn't felt since losing my own mother. "Okay," I said, calm, dignified. "I understand." I hung up, and then I sat, completely still, in a house filled with gifts that would never be opened. Outside, the snow began to fall. Inside, the warmth of my heart faded with every flake that touched the window. The silence after that call wasn't just quiet, it was hollow, like a bell that had stopped ringing, leaving nothing but a haunting echo in its place. I sat motionless for hours, staring at the wrapped gifts in the corner. The ribbons I'd curled so carefully now looked ridiculous, mocking. I imagined them sitting around the table, Emily, Caleb, his parents, laughing, toasting, while I stayed behind like some forgotten relic. That night I barely slept. Something inside me had snapped, not in anger, but in realization. At dawn, I picked up my phone and scrolled through my contact list. My finger paused on a name I almost didn't recognize. Lily Green, Caleb's niece. We'd met once briefly at a holiday dinner, exchanged numbers, and never spoke again. But now, I had questions. I sent a simple message. "Hi, Lily. Just wondering, are Caleb's parents spending the holidays with you or at your uncle's? Thinking of sending them a little something." She responded within minutes, cheerful and unsuspecting. "Oh, hey, Margaret." They're super excited, spending Christmas at Caleb's place, then off to Hawaii for a New Year's getaway. Isn't that amazing? My fingers went cold. Hawaii. They weren't fragile. They weren't exhausted. They were lying. Every word Caleb said, every soft excuse about rest in space, was a script, a performance, and I had played the fool willingly. I wasn't unwanted because of logistics. I was unwanted, period. I stared at the screen as my heart pounded in my ears. They hadn't just excluded me. They'd fabricated an entire narrative to justify it, like I was an obligation they'd grown tired of, a seasonal guest who had overstayed her welcome, and all those years of support. What did they mean now? The down payment, the monthly transfers, the sleepless nights, the love I gave without asking for a thing in return. Did they ever really see me as family? Or was I always just a woman who kept the lights on? Fueled by a quiet rage, I called Emily. The phone rang and rang until finally Caleb picked up. His voice was clipped, irritated. "Yeah, Margaret." "What now?" I didn't raise my voice. I didn't tremble. I just asked, "Are your parents really visiting for health reasons? Or are you all going to Hawaii?" There was a pause, then he snapped, "Who told you that? Who's feeding you garbage?" No denial, no shame, just panic. I smiled bitterly. That was all I needed to hear. "Don't worry," I said. "You won't need to make excuses anymore." And I hung up. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I simply walked to my computer, opened my banking app, and canceled the auto transfer. No more $5,000. Not out of revenge, not to punish, but because I finally understood something vital. Giving without boundaries isn't love, it's surrender. The 5th day after I canceled the transfer, the phone finally rang. It was Emily. I stared at the screen. Part of me wanted to ignore it, let it ring into the void, but some quiet instinct told me to pick up. "Hi, Mom," she said, her voice sweet, careful, like she was stepping onto thin ice. "I just wanted to check in," she continued. "It's gotten so cold lately. Are you bundling up?" I kept my reply short. "I'm fine." A pause, then the tone shift I'd been waiting for. "So, did you forget to send the money this month?" There it was. I didn't answer right away. Let the silence stretch, just long enough. Then I said calmly, "No, I didn't forget." The air on her end turned sharp, brittle. "I figured with all the holiday expenses and your in-laws staying over, you probably had plenty of help. Besides, I paused, choosing every word with precision. You were right. I've been interfering too much. It's time I step back. Silence. Then her voice, strained, trembling, rose like a broken violin string. Mom, how could you do this? Do you have any idea what we're dealing with? The mortgage, Noah's school bills. We're drowning. And now you just stop. For a brief moment, I felt the old reflex spark in my chest, the one that made me want to rush in and fix everything. But I didn't, because something inside me had shifted. You remembered the mortgage, I said softly. You remembered the bills. Funny how you remembered everything, except me. She was quiet again, and then Caleb's voice exploded through the phone, angry, shouting. This is manipulation. You're cutting us off just to guilt trip us back into your control. I didn't flinch. I didn't raise my voice. Instead, I replied with steel in my tone. I gave because I wanted to. Now I don't. That's not manipulation. That's choice. You called me extra? You called me interfering? Fine. I'm honoring your words. More silence. Then I said the words I never thought I'd be strong enough to say. You've made it clear where I stand in your life, Emily. And now I see it too. I won't be calling again. I won't be wiring money. I won't be inserting myself where I'm not welcome. There was a gasp on the other end, Emily's voice breaking apart. Mom, please, Caleb didn't mean it. He was just angry. I let out a sad little laugh. I'm not concerned with what he meant, sweetheart. I care about what you let him say. You stood there, and you said nothing. That's when it hit her. I could hear it in her breath, the guilt finally rising. I'm sorry, she whispered, but this time it wasn't enough, because I wasn't the same woman she'd always counted on to catch her fall. That part of me, the one who gave endlessly, was gone, and in her place stood someone new, someone who had finally learned that loving your child doesn't mean losing yourself. The days that followed were quiet, painfully quiet. Outside, the neighborhood glittered in holiday warmth, wreaths on doors, children dragging sleds down snowy sidewalks, the scent of cinnamon and pine in the air. But inside my little apartment, it was still, not cold, not bitter, just still. And in that stillness, I began to breathe again. I stopped checking my phone. I stopped waiting for apologies that might never come. Instead, I opened the windows during the day to let in the fresh air. I rearranged the furniture, dusted off old photo frames, and pulled out my sewing machine. That's when I saw an old email I'd forgotten about, from Julia, a coordinator at the local community center. Still looking for someone to teach basic sewing skills once a week. Low pressure, just folks who want to learn. Let me know if you're interested. In the past, I would have ignored it. Too tired, too busy. But now, I had nothing holding me back. I replied with 3 simple words. I'd love to. That Thursday, I walked into a room filled with curious faces, young women, single mothers, retirees. They gathered around me, eyes wide with questions and excitement. How do I thread this? What's the difference between stitches? Can you help me fix my kid's backpack? I smiled for real this time. I wasn't anyone's bank account here. I wasn't too much. I was Margaret, someone with something to give that had nothing to do with money. That night, I walked home with tired feet and a full heart. Later, I sat on the couch with a scarf I'd once knitted for Emily, the one she said was too old-fashioned and stuffed in a drawer. I started repairing the frayed edges, stitch by stitch, not for her, but for myself. The quiet rhythm calmed me, And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was waiting. I wasn't waiting for her to call, or Caleb to apologize, or for Noah to run into my arms. I was just living. I cleaned out the guest room, not in anticipation, but as an act of closure. I laid fresh flannel sheets, folded a blanket at the foot of the bed, and placed a small tin of strawberry cookies on the nightstand. Not because I expected anyone, but because if someone came back, not to take, but to reconnect, I wanted them to know a light still existed here. Not a beacon for rescue, but a gentle lamp for those willing to walk back on their own 2 feet. The next day, I helped Julia organize fabric donations. We laughed, drank instant coffee, and swapped stories. She hugged me before I left. "You're a gift to this place, Margaret," she said. "We need more people like you." And that's when I realized maybe I was needed, just not by the people I spent my whole life chasing. It was a Wednesday morning, cold, brittle, and gray, when the doorbell rang. I was tying on my apron halfway through prepping a pear and clove shortbread recipe for the next sewing class. When I opened the door, Emily was standing there. She looked small, hollow, not like a grown woman with a family, but like a child who had wandered too far and didn't know how to come home. Her voice cracked as she spoke. "Mom, can I come in?" I stepped aside without a word. She entered quietly, clutching a canvas bag that looked like it had seen better days. She didn't even take off her coat. "I'm not here to ask for money," she said quickly. I didn't know where else to go." I led her to the couch. She didn't sit close. She stayed on the far end, like she didn't want to intrude. Then in a voice barely above a whisper, she added, "I left Caleb. For good. He lost his job. The credit cards are maxed out, and," he snapped, "said Noah and I were just dead weight." Through a plate. I had to get out. I didn't speak, not out of anger, just stillness. She took a breath. "I know I let you down. I didn't defend you. I didn't stand up for you. But I see it now, I really do." For a long moment, I just looked at her. Not the daughter I had imagined, the perfect, grateful one, but the real one. Bruised by life, frightened, humbled. Then I stood and went to the kitchen. I poured her a glass of water, added a splash of lemon, and set it down in front of her. "Drink this," I said gently, "then breathe." She took it with trembling hands. "I'm not here to fix things for you," I said softly but firmly. "You can stay for a little while. But this isn't a place to escape responsibility. It's a place to rebuild, on your own 2 feet." She nodded, eyes brimming. "I understand." In the days that followed, I watched her move differently. She didn't rummage through my pantry, didn't ask where I kept the coffee money. Instead, she helped fold laundry. She sat beside me and asked about the sewing class. She even helped me prep materials. She'd ask, "Mom, are you sleeping okay? Do you need help with the groceries?" Simple things, but I felt the shift. She was learning, not just to survive, but to respect. Not just to be present, but to contribute. And for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like I was being drained. We weren't the same people we once were. She wasn't the helpless daughter I had to save, and I wasn't the mother who gave until I vanished. We were 2 women sitting side by side, learning slowly how to exist together, not out of guilt or habit, but out of something new. Mutual growth, mutual grace. The morning Noah's fever finally broke. Sunlight crept through the curtains and painted soft gold across his cheeks. He opened his eyes slowly, blinked twice and whispered, "Good morning, Grandma," with a scratchy little voice. But his eyes were clear. He was back. Emily hovered beside him all night, refusing to sleep. She looked like a mother who had finally understood the weight of that word. In the kitchen, she stirred oatmeal with one hand and quietly read instructions from her phone with the other. "Soak the oats. Don't add salt too early," she muttered almost to herself. I sat in the living room sipping tea. I didn't correct her, didn't offer suggestions, because true change doesn't bloom from advice. It grows silently in mornings like this. After Noah got better, Emily found a job at a local used furniture shop. Nothing fancy, but stable. Her boss, a sharp, quiet woman in her 50s, reminded Emily of me, she later said. "She doesn't say much, but she gets things done." One night over dinner, she looked up and asked softly, "Mom, can I stay a little longer?" I smiled. "If you want to stay, I'm glad to have you." And just like that, we didn't need a dramatic apology, just presence, just real effort. The days passed with rhythm. She stopped saying, "I'm sorry," and started saying, "Thank you." That to me meant more than any grand gesture. We weren't a perfect family, but we were something better now. Honest. One afternoon she came home from work, dropped her bag, and exhaled deeply. "I let the bank freeze my card today," she said. "Couldn't make a payment, but I handled it. I called. I figured it out." She wasn't proud. She wasn't asking for praise. She was just processing. "I'm tired," she added, "but it's a good kind of tired." And I knew what she meant. Later that week, she stood in the doorway, hands tucked into her sleeves. "Mom," she said gently, "if you ever want to travel somewhere, I'd love to go with you." I looked at her and smiled softly. "If I want to go somewhere, sweetie, I'll go, but thank you." She didn't argue. She didn't sulk. She just nodded, with understanding, not defeat. That's when I knew. She finally saw me as a person, not a safety net. 2 months later, she moved out, found a small apartment near Noah's school. Nothing fancy, but hers. Before she left, she looked at me and whispered, "You're always welcome to visit, but only if you want to." I walked her and Noah to the corner, gave one small wave, then returned to my kitchen and brewed tea for one. No tears, no ache, just peace. Because this time the silence in my home wasn't emptiness. It was freedom. And for the first time in decades, I realized I was no longer the mother trying to earn her place. I was a woman reclaiming her life. Sometimes the deepest heartbreak doesn't come from strangers. It comes from the people you gave everything to. Margaret learned that love without boundaries isn't kindness, it's self-erasure. For years, she gave quietly, constantly, without ever asking for anything back. She believed that was what mothers were supposed to do. But when silence became rejection and sacrifice was met with entitlement, she faced the truth. Love that drains you isn't love, it's obligation. She didn't stop giving out of anger. She stopped to reclaim her worth. Her journey wasn't about turning her back on her daughter. It was about turning toward herself. She chose to stop begging for space in someone else's life and start building a life of her own. And in doing so, she taught her daughter the most powerful lesson of all, that respect and love must flow both ways, and that peace is not something others give you. It's something you choose. If you're someone who's always putting others first, especially your children, this story is your mirror. You can love your family deeply without sacrificing yourself completely. It's okay to say no. It's okay to set limits. It's okay to step back when your giving becomes expected instead of appreciated. Your value isn't measured by how much you give, but by how much you honor your own needs. Like Margaret, you can still care, but with clarity. Maybe that means turning off the automatic support, taking that art class, or simply making tea for one without guilt. It doesn't make you selfish, it makes you free. And when you start living for yourself, something beautiful happens. You stop being a background character in someone else's story and become the author of your own. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this, please like and share with your friends. Your support keeps these stories alive. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a new episode. And if today's story touched your heart, leave a comment. I'd love to hear from you. Take care, stay well, and see you in the next story.